Hi everyone. Today I want to talk to you about numbers. And this may sound simple, but really understanding numbers well is the key to understanding any higher level math. Okay, so first we're going to start by classifying numbers quickly, and then we're just going to talk about operations with integers. So you might want to know what an integer is first, and an integer falls under the number system. And believe it or not, in the number system we have both real and imaginary numbers. So a real number would be like what you already know, 0, 1/2, 0.3721, whereas an imaginary number would be like I. And we don't learn that until Algebra 2, but it's something to note that you will learn about in the future. So we're going to focus on the real numbers. First, you can break real numbers down into rational numbers and irrational numbers. Okay, rational numbers are any number that can be written as a fraction, like A over B. So that could be like 1 over 1, or 2 over 2, or 3 over 4, or 512 over 1,200. Anything that can be written as a fraction is a rational number. An irrational number would be something like pi, okay, which is a repeating decimal that never ends. So 3.14 goes on forever and ever and ever infinitely. So we're not going to talk too much about irrational numbers today, but pi is one of the popular ones that you talk about in high school and on in geometry. So branching off of rational numbers, we're going to get more specific than anything that can be written as fraction, and we're going to talk about integers. Okay, integers are numbers like this: -2, 0, 1, 100, could be -50. These are all integers. So they're like whole numbers that don't have a part. So they don't have a fraction or a decimal after them. Which then you can be even more specific and just talk about whole numbers. Where integers include positives and negatives, whole numbers are only positive numbers, including 0. So it'd be 0, 1, 2, 3, on and on and on infinitely. So 100, 1,000, all whole numbers. And then natural numbers are whole numbers except 0. So 1, 2, 3, 4, etc., etc. You can think of it being called natural numbers because back in the day, 0 was not a natural concept, right? But 1, 2, 3, 4 things is like a quantifiable number. So I just want to say these words so you're familiar with them, but really we're going to focus on integers for at least this video, where we talk about positive and negative numbers that are not fractions or decimals. And we're going to talk about operations with those numbers, which this should not be anything new, but I want to give you a new way to think about these things to hopefully make it easier as problems get more complicated. Okay. 5 plus 7, pretty simple problem, but I often have students taking out their calculators to think about this, so I want to give you new ways to think about it in your head, specifically in your heads. We're not taking our calculators right now. Okay, when I think of 5 plus 7, I say, okay, well, if I had 3 plus 7, that would be 10. Okay, right, you have $3, you had $7, you now have $10. Okay, but this problem didn't actually say 3, it said 5. And 3 is 2 less than 5. So if I do 5 plus 7, I should have 2 more. What's 2 more than 10 is 12. Okay, so what I like to do when I'm doing these things in my head is kind of chunk it up into problems I know a little bit easier. So I know 3 plus 7 is 10. That means 5 plus 7 has to be 12. You may not even have to do this for something like 5 plus 7 because like I just count something like my fingers. But what about when you get to 52 plus 78? Okay, that's a little harder to do in my head. So what I usually do first is I say, okay, what's 50 plus 70? Well, 50 plus 50 is 100. So 50 plus 70 would then have to be 20 more, which would be 120. Okay, but this problem also had an additional 2 from the 50, an additional 8 that I can't forget. I have to add those together. Well, what's 2 plus 8? That's 10. Okay, so I need this 120 and this additional 10 here, which 120 plus 10 is then 130. So you can chunk up integer operations this way. I hope when you see 10 minus 3, you don't think I'm insulting, your intelligence or anything. In your head, you could just say, okay, I have $10, I take away 3. Well, now I have $7. But the reason I actually bring this up is because we don't often realize that these problems are exactly the same thing. So this brings me to the main point of this video, is what really is subtraction or a negative number. Okay, a negative number really implies a debt. I'm going to write that down and you should too. Okay, a negative number implies some sort of debt or taking away in the whole, however you want to think about it. Which is easily seen when I say 10 minus 3, right? You're taking away 3, so we only have 7 left. You have $10, you take away 3, you now have $7. This problem says the exact same thing. It says you were in debt $3, which means like you owed the bank money, right? You owed the bank $3, you did not have those $3, you were in debt. But then you have plus 10, which means you gained $10. So you were in debt 3, but then you gained 10. So this is a little bit harder to think about. So I want you to first ask yourself, if you were in debt $3, but then you earned or gained 10, are you going to be in debt still, or are you going to be out of debt? And since you're only in debt $3 and you gained 10, that means you had enough money to pay back those $3. So you would be out of debt. So your answer should be positive. It should be, you're not in debt, you're now in profit, if you want to think about it that way. You can also think about it like you're on a number line. So I was at -3, and then I gained 10. So let me draw this out real quick. So here's where you were at, but I'm going to label the whole number line. Here's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, we don't need to go that far. So if I started in debt 3, but then I gained $10, I'm going to the right, and I'm going to the right 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And I'm at 7 now. Okay, so -3, and then you gain 10. You're now out of debt. You have positive $7 if you want to think about it, or -3 plus 10 is 7. Okay, so when I said that these two problems were exactly the same, I meant it. 10 minus 3 means the exact same thing as -3 plus 10. Okay, really then this problem is the same as 10 plus -3. And this problem, well, 2 plus 3 is the same as 3 plus 2. So it's also the same as 10 plus -3. Okay, different ways of writing it, but you can think about them the same. Whereas oftentimes I find 10 minus 3 is an easy problem, but -3 plus 10 is not as easy. So if you want to rewrite them, you can. Okay, so that's lesson number 1. Lesson number 2 is think of negatives like debt and think of positives like things you gain. And you're going to hear me reference that a lot as problems get a little trickier as we go through the course. Okay, -9 minus 6, again, I want to employ what we just learned, where you have a negative number being you're in debt $9, and -6 means you take away 6, so that's also debt because you're taking away. Take away. Okay, this pen wasn't a good choice. Let's try something else. Let's go back to this here. Okay, so you're in debt $9, and then you take away 6 more, or you lose 6 more. So are you going to be in debt still, or are you going to be out of debt? In my head, I think, okay, if I'm in debt and then I lose more, I'm still in debt. So my answer should be negative. So you're in debt $9, and then you take away 6 more, you're going to be in debt $6 more. Well, what's 9 plus 6 would be 15, but you're in debt 9 and you take away 6, so now you're negative $15 in the hole. You can draw out that number line if you want, or you can kind of think about it as I just thought through. So I'm going to let you try this one on your own, and I'm just going to talk about one more concept before we end this video. I often find that this is one of the trickier concepts because there's a lot of signage going on. What happens when you subtract a negative, right? We have that double negative here. So like I said before, the negative number I think of as debt, and subtraction I think of as takeaway. And this is the best way I can think about this in my head, and I hope that this makes sense to you. When it says 4 minus -2, you're saying you're taking away the debt. And if somebody takes away your debt, it like turns into a positive, right? So if I take away the $2 of debt, it then becomes a positive thing, which is the same as 4 plus 2. So 4 minus -2 is the same as 4 plus 2. -8 minus 5 is the same as -8. Take away the negative, it's now plus 5. Okay, so anytime you see subtract a negative, it's actually adding, like so. Okay. Now, I understand that can be tricky to wrap your head around, so just kind of think of double negatives in general. Like if you're in class and your teacher says, don't not do that, well, they're telling you to not do that, which actually means to do that. So it becomes a positive. Anyways, in conclusion, when you subtract a negative, it's the same as adding. So then this becomes not so bad. 4 plus 2 is 6, and negative 8 plus 5, well, you're $8 in debt, but then you gain $5. So you're not quite out of debt enough to pay that 8 back. You're still in debt, but now you only have $3 of debt. Okay, and I want you to think about debt and profit for problems other than addition. You can also think about that for multiplication too. So let's say you have negative 10 and you're multiplying that by 4. Okay, what that really means is negative 10 4 times. So think about this as $10 in debt. Clearly, I really like to talk about money. And then you repeat that 4 times, or you're in debt 4 times. Or think about it as you charge $10 to your credit card 4 different times. So what's negative 10, negative 10, negative 10, and negative 10? Well, that would be negative $40 now. You charge $10 4 times. Okay, you can think about it with division as well. So let's say you have negative 20. I don't know, I'm just making these up off the top of my head now. The point isn't to do difficult numbers, it's just to think about it as, debt and profit. So if you have negative 20 and you divide it by 2, well, think about it as you have $20 in debt and you share it or divide it amongst 2 people. So like both you and your business partner have to pay $20 in debt back. Well, then each of you would have to pay $10 total because you're sharing the debt amongst 2. Okay. Hopefully those problems weren't too bad, but the whole point is to think about numbers a little bit differently. As we go through the course, I will often talk about, negatives being debt when the problems get more difficult to kind of give us common, way to think about problems. So I hope you enjoyed that, and let me know if you have any questions. Take care.